Mr. Weber is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Question for each of the three of the panelists here first, and then we'll go on to the video gentleman. Range of the temperature increase that you consider would be happening with climate change, Mr. Cass, did you have an estimate for that? The range of the temperature increase by the end of the century?
As Dr. Lomborg said, I think I would also look at what the IPCC has projected, which, depending on the scenario you use, I think a number between 3.5 and 4 degrees Celsius is probably the best available estimate.
Mr. Grossman, same question.
Mr. Anderson, I'm an attorney. I'm not a climate scientist or anything of the sort. But you look at the agreement here and all of that, and you kind of wonder, is it going to make any difference at all? I don't know.
Okay, and Dr. Steer.
Without action by the end of the century, between 3.8 and 5 degrees Celsius, with sea level rise of about 1 to 2 meters.
Oh, I got the sea level rise as a bonus. And Mr. Lomborg, how about you? Did you hear?
Well, again, I would also take my starting point with the UN climate panel. If we don't do anything, they find that the likely range towards the end of the century for RCP 6 is 1.4 up to 4.8 for RCP 8.5. And again, the sea level rise would be somewhere between half and a full meter. I'm very surprised with Steer's 2 meters. That's certainly not in the standard range.
Okay, thank you. Gentlemen, as the President flies over to Paris to attempt something that Mr. Cass and Mr. Grossman says he doesn't have the authority to do, or that you've showed that he doesn't have the authority to do, is there any idea of what that, has anybody done the research? Do you know what that cost the American taxpayer? Anybody have that figure? Dr. Steer?
I beg your pardon, the cost of
the cost of his going over to the Paris for the climate negotiations that these two gentlemen have shown that he doesn't have the authority to do without, Congress weighing in to spend the money for what he wants to agree to.
I could talk about the cost of the Clean Power Plan, but not about his trip to Paris.
Okay. Do any of you have go ahead, Dr. Lauenberg.
Sorry, I mean, if you use the latest Stanford Energy Modeling Forum for the U.S. and estimate what is it going to cost to cut 26% below 2005 by 2025 with the most efficient measures possible. So remember, this does not include the Clean Power Plan, which undoubtedly is not the most effective.
Dr. Lauenberg, I'm just talking about his trip. Just his trip over there.
I'm sorry.
No, I got you. I got you. All right, let me move on. Does anybody know what the cost in terms of the output of the CO2 are for the trip? Everybody seems to be concerned about the cost of the output of CO2. Has anybody calculated that? Dr. Steer, I'll start with you.
No, Congressman.
Dr. Lomborg?
No, I don't know.
Okay. So climate change, Dr. Steer, you made the comment earlier, or actually I think Dr. Lomborg said that he quoted people saying we're actually going to make money from this. Well, there's people making money from pushing climate change, no question about it, in my estimation. One of the proponents of climate change on the national stage is actually a presidential candidate, is reported to saying, Bernie Sanders, that climate change caused the rise of ISIS. Are you all aware of that? Just as a question, Mr. Cass, would you agree with that assertion?
No.
Mr. Grossman?
Of course not.
Dr. Steer?
In the 8 years leading up to the Syrian civil war, there was a drought. So too in northeast Nigeria, where Boko Haram has emerged, has been a drought.
So back when the Sunnis and the Shias split some 600, 700, 800 years ago, was that because of climate change?
No, I'm not making that link at all, sir.
Oh, I got you. Okay, smart man in that regard. Dr. Lomborg?
It's very, very tenuous, that connection.
Okay. One of the other comments was made, and I'm going to move on very quickly now, that Kennedy wanted to go to the moon, and so people, and that was a good thing, and climate change ought to be tackled because it's hard as well. But refresh my memory from a historical perspective, because you all have checked into this. Back then, Congress was with him and actually appropriated the money to do that. Is that correct, Mr. Cass, your recollection, or Mr. Grossman?
That's absolutely correct. And indeed, that was, the President put special emphasis on that.
Right, and so you had the people with him at that point. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.